Hello and welcome to the Total Soccer Show. I am Taylor Rockwell. Daryl Grove remains in England, so today I'll instead be talking Borussia Dortmund with Brian Meyers. Of course, any conversation about Dortmund is, if it's being included on an American podcast, likely going to feature some Christian Pulisic talk, which also serves as a reminder that the USMNT, likely with Pulisic on the roster and possibly starting, will be hosting Mexico on November 11th in Columbus in a World Cup qualifier. If you're feeling the need to get properly equipped for that match, then today's sponsor has got you covered. It's roughneckscarves.com. That's Roughneck, spelled R-U-F-F-N-E-C-K, roughneckscarves.com. They are the official scarf provider for U.S. Soccer, MLS, NCAA, and the USL, and may soon have a TSS scarf available for your purchasing pleasure. That's just a maybe. We shall see. They are committed to providing passionate soccer fans with outstanding customer service, professional design, and the highest quality soccer scarves in the world, and to keep TSS listeners from having to break the bank to get some merchandise. Our listeners can use the promo code TOTALSoccerShow, that's all one word, all uppercase, to get 20% off any scarf in the shop. Many thanks to Roughneck Scarves for sponsoring today's show, and with that said, on to today's guest. It's Brian Meyers, managing editor at SB Nation's Fear the Wall blog. Brian, thanks so much for taking the time to be on TSS today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, our pleasure, our pleasure. So you've obviously been doing a great job in writing about Dortmund, covering Dortmund, helping those of us who don't know much about Dortmund but want to understand the club. So thank you for all that you guys are doing over there.
Yeah, you're welcome. I like doing it. I just really enjoy doing it.
Well, I wanted to ask you first off, what made you start doing it? Why did you start supporting Dortmund? Why did you want to write about them?
Well, I started out at Dortmund, and I've heard this actually from a lot of fans of Dortmund in the U.S. I was just a casual soccer fan, and I started playing them on FIFA. This was FIFA 08. And I'm like, oh, these guys are fun. And I was just like a casual Dortmund fan for years. And then when I got into college, so I really didn't care when they won their 2 championships. I was like pretty casual fan. I read it on Twitter, and I was like, that's cool. But I started paying attention when I got to college in 2013. I was on the floor with a lot of international students, and, they were all into their teams. And I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm going full Dortmund train. So, I watched that terrible Champions League final against Bayern, and since then I've just been supporting them.
And so, wait, I want to go back to FIFA 08. Was there a specific player that drew you in that made you want to support Dortmund, or was it just sort of you tended to gravitate towards that team for whatever reason?
They were just the fastest team in the game, and I was terrible at passing, terrible at crossing. I just liked running through the defenders and scoring.
That's interesting, because we talked about that a little while ago, just that, it does seem like people of a certain generation, that is where they first got to, experience soccer because coverage wasn't so good for so long. That seems like FIFA definitely helped people get to know a lot of the more kind of, I guess, random teams is one way to put it. Oh, that might be a little bit harsh, but just the non-English teams, I guess, is the way to put it.
Yeah, I remember we did a post asking people how they started following Dortmund, and I would have to say 75% said FIFA.
Wow.
It's crazy. But, you got to find it somehow.
So it's been an evolution, obviously. You were there with Jurgen Klopp. Now you have Thomas Tuchel. I wanted to ask about him. Would you say that he is, for people who are just kind of tuning into Dortmund this season or aren't as familiar with him, would you say he's kind of in the spirit of Klopp and kind of carrying on the tradition established by Jurgen Klopp, or is he kind of unique, doing his own thing, sort of separate from his predecessor?
Thomas Tuchel is his own manager, for sure. He's not as crazy on the sidelines as Klopp. He doesn't do a lot of the antics.
Yeah.
And he's not as much about, the gegenpressing, but, that system is still in place. The youth coaching, the very intenseful youth coaching is still in place. So they're similar. They both come from Mainz, and Mainz has a very strong soccer culture, and you can see it with both of them. They don't wear suits. They're very casual. But the Tuchel generation is different. It's just with the way we play. It's not heavy metal football anymore. It's more just like the new Tuchel style, whatever we're going to brand it as in the future.
So what would you say are the hallmarks of the Tuchel style then?
Fast playing on the wings for sure, and a much dirtier defense. I mean, we're playing a better defense than we have in years, I think. That last year under Klopp was there was some weird effort problems, but there was just also just an open back line, way too open. Just the way we pressed it too high of a line.
And you also mentioned that there's like the intense focus on youth coaching. Does that mean that it's kind of a top-down system where the academy teams are playing the similar style of soccer, or does it just mean he being Tuchel, is very interested in the goings-on in the academy about who could potentially come through and just kind of keeping an eye on it from that perspective?
Yeah, it's Tuchel, and then you can't really talk about, how we run the team totally without Zorc and Watts. A lot of people don't realize that Mikel Zorc is really the brains behind the entire Dortmund rise in the past couple of years because of his focus on just training, investing money in the youth system. And so while, the manager has changed, the youth system has not. Like they're doing pretty much the same things. Even though youth coaches has changed, we're still doing the same things. No, there has not been any disruption at the youth level in recent years.
So wait, sorry, and for those who are unfamiliar, including myself, so then who is Nico Zorc? Because I don't know who that is.
He's our general. He's like the general manager.
Okay.
He's most of our transfers. A lot of people don't realize. I hear Liverpool fans talk about it when Klopp's looking at someone. Dortmund Twitter has a joke that there were the Klopp transfers and the Zorc transfers. And the Zorc transfers, they're the good ones. And the Klopp transfers, that's like, Immobile. Everyone thought that, Klopp pushed really hard for him. And Zorc didn't really want him, and then he didn't really work out. So, maybe it's a little unfair, but a lot of people do attribute Zorc as like the genius behind all transfers.
So does that extend to the current system? Where are there Tuchel transfers and Zorc transfers, or is it mostly just Zorc at this point?
We haven't really seen. There's a recent report came out that Tuchel is having a lot of fights with our head scout, but our head scout who works under Zorc and pretty much part of that system, he's the one that found Dembele and all those players. But Tuchel, a Tuchel transfer, everyone said that Tuchel is the one that brought in Julian Weigl, and Julian Weigl has been, arguably Dortmund's best player since he came onto the team.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I wanted to ask you a bit about those transfers, or a bit more about those transfers. So this summer, Dortmund brought in kind of the bigger names, I guess you could say, like Andreas Schürrle and Mario Götze. But then you have the lesser known, but probably should be better known names like Ousmane Dembele, Emre Mor. So I'm curious if you know, like, kind of what that Dortmund scouting system is like, what they're prioritizing in terms of who they're bringing in, or is it just sort of, we've got a lot of roles that need to be filled, let's go out and get some players?
Yeah, it was Dembele finding value in those players, and I think the scouts just really liked Dembele. I mean, a lot of scouting, reports came out that a lot of scouts across Europe liked Dembele, but no one was really sure. And Emre Mor, I don't think there was any reporting on him before Dortmund picked him up. I was really surprised. I had no idea who he was, and I had to go around looking for videos on YouTube. But in terms of what Dortmund was looking for, they just like you. I don't think they would ever buy an older player unless he was, still malleable. They really like having people in their system.
And with some of the players we've seen them make or transfer back in recently, you have Shinji Kagawa, you have Mario Götze, as I mentioned, even Nuri Sahin to some extent. Do you think that at a certain point players just maybe learn to stop leaving the club? Like, do you think it becomes a thing where it's like, maybe the grass is always greener, but maybe you should avoid that grass and just stay with the grass you know?
I mean, I don't fault any players for leaving the team that they're at. It's an open market. They should get their money. That's up to them. But I think a lot of players from now on are going to be pretty wary. Even looking at Mkhitaryan not playing at all for Manchester United, I think maybe players are going to start maybe wondering if they shouldn't go to the English Premier League. Or, I mean, Bayern, they'll be fine at Bayern. Look at Lewandowski, look at Hummels. Götze had a pretty good time at Bayern. I think the narrative is a little dim on him there. Yeah, I think they're always going to leave. It's money. People play for money.
Well, do you think a sustained title challenge would help maybe keep players there? And how likely do you think that is this season, given that Dortmund have struggled a bit of late?
This season, I mean, I don't want to write them off, but it hasn't looked good the past month. We've had, at any given time, around 10 injuries on the squad. So, this is not, the Dortmund of the past couple of weeks is not full-strength Dortmund. But that being said, I mean, last year, we lost only so many times, and we still couldn't catch Bayern in the end.
Mm-hmm.
And Bayern are looking just as fine this season.
So from your Bundesliga experience, do you think there is one club out there who could rival Bayern, or do you think it is kind of going to be Bayern pulling away with it and then everybody else fighting for second, third place in the Bundesliga?
I think this season Bayern's going to pull away from it,
mm-hmm.
but I think next season we're going to see Dortmund and Leipzig really make a dangerous run at Bayern.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead. And then I have more questions for you.
Yeah, a lot of people just underrate Leipzig, I think. I think a lot of people are writing them off because they're newly promoted, but they are good, and they have spent, most people don't realize, they've invested more money than any other team in Germany in the past 4 years, other than Bayern. They've spent more than Dortmund.
Is that at all like a concern for you as a Dortmund fan? Because it is sort of like we've seen it with Malaga in La Liga, with PSG in Ligue 1, and then with Man City and Chelsea, obviously in the Premier League. Like a club coming in with vast pockets, deep pockets. Do you, as a club that like tends to bring in these youngsters, these exciting players, buy them for cheap, maybe sell them for much more than you bought them for? Does the kind of rise of Leipzig, does that give you at all pause for concern?
Well, I mean, as a fan, I'm definitely concerned that we have new competition.
Mm-hmm.
As a lover of the game, I don't really mind that they are break from tradition. I think it's kind of like a lot of German fans don't like that they pretty much violate the 50+1 rule.
Mm-hmm.
But I think they're fine for the game. As a Dortmund fan, yes, I think they're like the next club to rival us. Everyone thought that was going to be Wolfsburg, but they've kind of dropped off without Kevin De Bruyne. But I think Leipzig is here to stay. I think Dortmund is going to have some trouble with them over the next couple of years.
I see. And in terms of trouble Dortmund might have, it seems like every transfer window, there's another big player linked with a move away. Do you see any more of that happening this season when the January window rolls around? Do you see maybe links with Aubameyang or other players out there, or do you think it's kind of steady for right now?
I think it's steady for right now. I've been very consistent about saying that Aubameyang is going to leave Dortmund to go to Real Madrid. Like, you can say he's going to go to Manchester City. You see the rumors. He promised his grandfather before he died that he was going to play for Real Madrid. I 100% believe that Aubameyang is committed to playing for Real Madrid at one point. It's just that Madrid has a transfer ban for a year.
Yeah, that's not particularly helpful for them in making signings, I suppose. Then there are other players out there who are linked away. I think I've made it almost 12 minutes before mentioning Christian Pulisic. So let's talk about him for a second. I'm curious if you think there is going to be increased attention on him from clubs trying to sign him, or do you think he's going to be at Dortmund for the foreseeable future for the long term?
Well, there's going to be rumors for sure, and there's going to be, people are going to be asking Zorc and Watts about Pulisic. But unless we get, a funny money offer, I think Tuchel really likes him. I think Pulisic likes being there. I think Pulisic has seen that his development there has, been just ridiculous. And I don't see Pulisic as an 18-year-old who still is not – he's not going to be starting as much as he is now when Royce is back. So he's going to be a bench player unless someone really just offers some funny money and a starting position. I see him at Dortmund for the next couple of years.
Yeah, so we talked about that a little bit before Daryl fled to England for 2 weeks. We talked about that on the show, but there really aren't that many other options out there for him that seem like they would be that beneficial, because right now he is getting playing time with Dortmund. So a move to Liverpool or Stoke, as was kind of mooted, that doesn't really make as much sense, it seems, because he isn't going to be getting that playing time. But that's dependent on the playing time he's getting now. I'm wondering how much you think he'll get, how integral he is in the system of Tuchel when those players start coming back. Do you really think he will be back on the bench, or do you think he'll be kind of rotating minutes with other players?
He will be back on the bench, I think, when Royce is back. It's just with Royce and Shua, and I think Tuchel really is putting a lot of focus on trying to get Dembele and more playing time. I think Tuchel trusts Pulisic to be on the bench and still develop, where I don't think he trusts that if Dembele and Moore bench ride for a lot of the season or aren't getting enough minutes, they will develop.
I see. So with the injuries that you've had, so say everybody comes back to full fitness, what would you say is like your ideal starting 11? You personally, what would you like to see? What do you think is the strongest 11 that Dortmund could put out at present?
So let's say it's like a 4-2-3-1.
Mm-hmm.
Left back would be Rafael Guerrero, who is
Mm-hmm.
just fantastic. So probably one of our best buys, like just period. He's been so good. Socrates, fan favorite, Mark Bartra from Barcelona,
Mm-hmm.
and at right back, Pulisic's best friend and other super youth product, Felix Passlack.
I love me
My
some
whole
Felix Passlack.
Yeah, I love Felix Passlack. At holding midfield, Julian Weigel, of
Mm.
course, and Sebastian Rode. And then the attacking midfielders, Royce, Götze, and Schürrle. And then at striker, Aubameyang.
So it sounds like basically the competition for Pulisic then is going to be some combination of Dembele, Royce, Moore, and Schürrle. Are there other names in there that I'm forgetting?
Rafael Guerrero has also been played in the midfield a lot. And
Mm-hmm.
I would say that Guerrero might also be pretty dangerous competition for Pulisic. At least Pulisic isn't a free kick taker and Raf is, and that can come into, play during games that Pulisic should be getting playing time, like cut ties and whatnot.
So then it seems like to me this becomes the problem when you have established veterans and big money transfers and youngsters coming through, is sort of like, how do you develop everybody and incorporate everybody? So I'm curious if you have insights into, say, what you would like to see for a player like Pulisic or Emre Moore or Dembele, how you kind of keep that player happy while keep them developing, and what you think maybe the long-term plan is for keeping them in the club and getting them minutes.
My theory on Dembele and Moore is, although I doubt it would happen because they were just big money transfers for Dortmund over the summer, is that when you see the players that come through Dortmund's youth system, Passlack, Pulisic, we just saw Brun Larsen do some funny stuff against Union. The thing you see about them is that they're young, but they're very disciplined.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas Moore and Dembele, they're very talented, but they're just like taking shots from, way outside the box.
Right.
They're not making the extra pass. I do think that, although I doubt Tuchel does it, I think they need some time at the youth level, because whatever Dortmund's teaching these kids at the youth level, they're coming up to play real, older professionals, and they're calm.
Mm-hmm.
They're making the right passes. They're not, just trying to do crazy dribbles all the time, and they can do a lot for their development. Pulisic, I think, is disciplined enough and mature enough that even if, Tuchel wanted him to go get minutes at the U19 range, he would just go down and he'd do it. I don't know why Tuchel doesn't send a lot of these guys to Dortmund too. It just seems that when they're that young, he keeps them with the U19s instead of having them play in the regional, at least the West.
It also seems like he's not too inclined to send players out on loan. Is that just because he wants them to develop a very specific way within the Dortmund Academy?
Yeah, it seems that the Dortmund Academy is so good that you almost don't need a loan,
Mm-hmm.
and loans for us in the past have not worked out great. It seems that you just can't, if you trust another coach, he's not going to learn the Dortmund system. He's going to come back and you're going to have to teach him everything again.
I see. That's definitely not ideal for a loan. Go out and spend a year away and then come back and we'll reteach you everything. Yeah, that probably doesn't fit with the ideal development that you're looking for there.
No, definitely not.
So we talked about Felix Passlack, who I really do think I do love Christian Pulisic because I'm a U.S. men's national team fan. But Felix Passlack does seem to be like the glue of those youngsters. It always seems like they're celebrating, and he's the one who's celebrating most emphatically. But him aside, and the names we mentioned aside, are there other youngsters you expect to see starting to get minutes, maybe starting to come through that academy that you think will get some headlines going forward?
Oh yeah, I mean. Against Union Berlin, Jakob Brun Larsen,
Mm-hmm.
he's a Danish winger. He looked amazing out there. He looked like he was, he looked like Christian Pulisic was a year ago. Playing against, Christian Pulisic, funny enough, also got his first start for Dortmund against Union Berlin. And so did Brun Larsen, and Brun Larsen scored a pretty nice goal. So I think we'll see a lot more of Jakob Brun Larsen as things go on. Another player, Jakob Brunik. I don't know if his first name is Jakob. Brunik is a center back who is supposed to be, the future center back at Dortmund. Other than that, kids come up and down. The big hype, he's not a kid. He's a 24-year-old player, Al Gahoudi, who's just been scoring goal after goal for Dortmund too. And you might see if injuries persist, if we get more injuries, say this international break, I think we'll see Gahoudi come up because he's he seems like he's just level above Dortmund too at the moment.
And then keeping in the theme of players who maybe aren't getting minutes or that many looks yet, I know there are a couple of other Americans, at least I think there are a couple other Americans on the books at Dortmund. I don't know if Junior Flores is still there. I think Joe Zhao is there. What's their status, and are there other Americans kind of in the pipeline for Dortmund?
Yeah, well, Joe actually is making his first appearance for Dortmund in 23 months. He is back from injury. I'm so happy for him. That's a long road, 23 months. He's going to be on the bench today against Mönchengladbach too. Junior Flores is still with Dortmund. He's playing for Dortmund too. He doesn't get many minutes. Mm-hmm. And then of course there's we've been jokingly hyping him up a lot. He's probably starting in goal today against Sporting in the UEFA Champions League Junior League. Is Will Pulisic, right. Pulisic's cousin, who's a goalkeeper.
Yep. Richmond's own, I think. I'm pretty sure he's from Richmond United.
He's from Richmond.
There we are. Yeah, exactly. Yay. All the more reason. So Richmonders, if you need a Bundesliga team or just a pro team to support, go ahead and support Dortmund for that reason. Although it does seem like maybe he's a little bit of a long way off from making his first senior appearance.
Oh, yeah. There's still, in the youth level, Bondman is still ahead of Will Pulisic. But Will Pulisic, playing for the U17s in the Champions League, that's a pretty good start.
Yeah, I'll take that. And actually, while we're on the subject of reasons why people should like Dortmund, or maybe people do like Dortmund, it does seem like they are kind of evolving from like the hipsters pick of a club. Because it used to be like the Jurgen Klopp, I think they were kind of the anti-Bayern Munich a little bit and the anti-establishment almost. It does seem like they are still a very popular club, but it also seems like they do pretty interesting, pretty cool things to kind of engender that love. One thing I saw recently, which I think you wrote about, was like, I think it was your post was called No Beer for Racists, but it was about their kind of stance on racism and homophobia within the stadium, within the supporter culture. Can you talk a little bit about that and the inspiration for your article?
Yeah, Dortmund, takes a very hard stance against racism at the games. Mm-hmm. You still see racists slip through. It's actually been a pretty bad problem at Dortmund in the past couple of years. You get a lot of racists at the game, but Dortmund tries to root them out. If you're a right-wing fan, you're not allowed to hang any racist banners like at other sporting arenas in Germany. And yeah, Dortmund just tries to be a club for everyone. They try to stop racism. The beer carriers at the stadium actually say no beers for racists in German. So
right.
That's just a cool thing they do. They flew a refugees welcome flag. They played a game in benefit of refugees against FC St. Pauli last season, the beginning of last season as a friendly. So that was like a cool thing they did. I think the culture at Dortmund is like a very European left-wing punk kind of style. Kind of like what draws people to clubs like FC St. Pauli is like Dortmund's just a bigger version. Everyone is allowed, but just watch soccer and have fun.
I like that. Well, I'm assuming everyone is allowed to read Fear the Wall. Can you talk a little bit about what you guys have going on there?
Yeah, Fear the Wall has been doing well. We started last January. I remember it because our first game we covered was Christian Pulisic on the bench, and I really didn't think highly of him. I was like, this is a random American on the bench.
How dare you? How dare you?
Yeah. Yeah, I know, right? Yeah, Through the Wall, we've been doing a lot of game coverage for every game, and we've been also trying to get a list of every place where Dortmund fans meet in the world, actually. It originally started as the U.S., but Norway, Romania, Vietnam, Nepal has all reached out to us, where Dortmund fans can meet, congregate. There's nothing like this on Dortmund's site, and we figured we had to do it. So check it out if you're a fan.
Yeah, I was going to say, so it's basically if you want to learn more about Dortmund, start supporting Dortmund, you can go there, find maybe if there's a group in your city, or maybe you can try to start one in your city, let you guys know, and then it just becomes one big happy family, one big happy yellow and black family.
Yep, we're just trying to, we're a community. We're just trying to unite everyone. There really wasn't a large voice for American or English-speaking Dortmund fans before Through the Wall, oddly enough.
Well, that's excellent. Well, Brian, I really appreciate all that you're doing. I really appreciate your taking the time to talk to the Total Soccer Show today. One more plug. So you've got Fear the Wall. Any other place where our listeners can find your work?
No, just Fear the Wall.
All right. Well, there we go. Well, thank you, Brian, very much, and we will talk to you soon.